Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Drozdz. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Drozdz. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Drozdz, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is networking. I cannot stress enough how important it is to build your tribe of fellow real estate investors. You can find other real estate investors through your local REIA group or through the Meetup app on your phone. REIA, which is REIA, stands for Real Estate Investor Association. For an organization to use those letters, they must follow certain guidelines. The membership is around, say, 150 to 250 for the year, and they typically hold multiple events throughout each month. The Meetup app is another great place to find free networking meetings in your area. I'm a big fan of the Bigger Pockets meetups and the Invest Her community, which is for women only. Sorry, boys. If you are looking to attend an event, the topic should not be as important as the people in the room. I have attended super boring presentations, but met amazing people sharing a table with me. Make sure you get everyone's card or digital contact and don't be afraid to reach out. I had so much fun with some ladies at one meetup, and then we created our own accountability group. We are now in our 4th year of meeting for lunch every other week. The most important reason to establish relationships with other investors in your area is so you can find vetted contractors or inspectors or banks or attorneys or lenders, to name a few. When you are in a pinch and need a last-minute lawn guy to mow before you list a property, you have a handful of people that are happy to share some contacts. So don't be shy, get your ass out there and create your tribe. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Canadian Marcin Drozdz. Marcin is the managing partner of M1 Real Capital, where he and his team focus on acquiring value-add multifamily properties throughout the Southeast. Over the past 16 years, he has helped acquire over 1,500 units across the U.S. and established himself as a go-to in the world of capital raising and real estate acquisitions. I can't wait to pick his brain, so welcome to the show, Marcin.
Thanks, Jen. I love your intro.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we're matching today. I love it. I know you all can't see, but we are definitely wearing the exact same color shirt. So
we are color coordinated.
We are. And I have to let people know you are so amazing because last week my computer was updating and it took way longer. And so we had to reschedule. And I just want to let everyone know what an amazing and flexible person you are. So I truly appreciate you rescheduling with me. So thank you. Now, Canadian, I want you to tell us all about you, sir. So tell us, how'd you get involved in real estate?
Sure. I'd love to. So I started out, just like so many people that probably listen to your podcast, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in my, I think it was late teens. And I read the book. I was on track to go to college, university for law, potentially become a lawyer. And much to my mom's dismay, that book really derailed that process because I did the downtown commute thing, the internships and all that stuff. And I was ready to blow my brains out. So in the meantime, and this is early 20s, right? So I'm like, I hate this now. I can't even imagine this when I'm in my 30s or 40s, or God forbid beyond that. So, while I was doing that, I got myself acquainted with real estate, and I didn't have any way into the industry. So what I did is I essentially begged realtors to let me work for free for them, just so I could be in the room to see what was going on. So finally, one of them took some pity on me and let me carry his for sale signs to the properties, out of the properties. I'm jamming these massive wrought iron signs into the trunk of my car and just destroying the roof liner. I didn't care. I wanted to have access, right? So, and I did that for a while. One thing led to another. Met mortgage brokers, met a few other guys. Bought my first rental property while I was still in school. Learned about negative cash flow immediately the month after that. Mm-hmm. you go through all the lessons, right? All the reiterations, and fast forward not too much longer. I ended up bailing on the university track, and I got recruited into private equity. Picked up my life, moved across the country, and immediately was thrown into, hey, we're buying 100, 200, 300 unit multifamily buildings. We are Canadian, but we're buying in the U.S. It was always great then. It's still great now. And it was just amazing, because it forced me to think and see things from a totally different perspective. Like guys that are buying 100, 200, 300 units, and they're doing this every month. Like your context just gets blown. So, I'm in my early 20s, and I thought I was doing something with the duplexes and the fourplexes I was looking at. And I'm like, man, this is, and I've been spoiled ever since. So that's kind of the short and fast of it all.
Well, Marcin, I appreciate you clarifying that even though you're Canadian, you do buy throughout the U.S. So thanks for clarifying that. And I am in that space right now, which is single family homes. We did just purchase our first quad, and I now want to evolve into commercial multifamily. It's a personal goal of mine. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on here. And I know we're mainly going to be talking about funding and raising capital, which is so very important. But I do have two little quick questions before we begin. So how do you find multifamily? Well, let me rephrase that. How do you find value add multifamily properties?
Well, you need to find things that have a story, things that have a tale behind them. Whether real estate is a human element, and whether you're trying to buy a single family house potentially at a discount and do a fix and flip or a burr or anything like that, you're typically looking for a story. Multifamily is the same. Case in point, we bought a property was just over a year ago, where the owner had made some questionable decisions during the renovation period. I'd never seen this before, but he'd actually evicted all the tenants from the property before he started renos. And when you have 80 plus doors, that hurts. So I don't know why he did this. I don't know the backstory, but the lender that lent on this property was quite perturbed. And they called us and they said, listen, we have this asset. We're owed X dollars on it. And by the way, this guy hasn't paid the mortgage in a couple of months. Do you want to take it over? So we solved their problem because we stepped in, we bought out the note, took over the payments. We're able to reposition the asset and give the owner that may have made some poor choices, a soft landing, so to speak. So, there was a story there. There was a property that I'd bought just after that one, where the owner that owned it was tired and fatigued, and he'd had some pressure from his significant other to move across the country. So they wanted a quiet transaction. They owned a couple hundred properties. So, a couple hundred doors. So you try to find things with a little bit of a story to them. And, you have to have the ability to help them solve their problem in a way that still makes sense. Right. So I like snail mail. I like doing direct mail, things like that. I'm also very obviously verbal on my own podcast saying I'm looking for multifamily. So hopefully someone is out there listening and will share something of the sort. But as far as my direct mail campaign, do you have any suggestions on where to focus on where to send them to? So we don't do direct mail. Not that it doesn't work. I've some of my colleagues and some
It's
of our students,
I know
they do it.
it's that small mentality, like I'm still in that single family home space. So it's hard for me to kind of let go of the direct mail, but I still want to at least try. So
Yeah, and by all means, I'm sure there's people out there that make it work. For us, when you start to get to larger assets, you have a lot less options. There aren't thousands of properties to canvas. There's typically hundreds, or sometimes on the market maybe 100, and that's your potential base of customers. So getting strategic, getting the access to the people that know who owns what and is doing what becomes much more important. So for example, on the larger properties, property management firms are really good lead source, because they're managing properties. So there's two ways to look at it. One is, if there's a really bad property manager in a town, then just follow them around and see what they're managing, and maybe call the owners and see
awesome.
What's going on. Because that, you can just follow the bad manager around. And if you combine a bad manager with an out of state owner or out of country owner, then that is almost a recipe for disaster. Actually, one more thing: out of state owner is someone who's not a full-time real estate investor. So maybe a group of doctors got together and threw some money in a hat and decided, hey, buying real estate's a good idea. And then they hired a property manager without understanding the reputation locally. So, those are that trifecta is almost a guaranteed mess bound to happen, whether it's in 6 months or 6 years. And I've seen that a few times. Other good examples are contractors that are operating, that if you can hire a general contractor to do renos for you on a 10 of your units, 20 of your units, an entire fix and flip, 80 units, 100 units. By the way, there's different contractors for single family and there are for multi. It's a different skill set. It's a different labor pool. They do different finishes. They think differently. They price differently. They buy goods differently. The plumber you'll hire for your duplex is typically not the guy that's going to do your 80 unit conversion, because they are not, that's not their game. They're not equipped for that. They're not Walmart. They're a specialty store. So you got to find the contractor that works more on that Walmart model. So that's important. And when you get those contractors, what ends up happening is, if you develop a good reputation for paying on time, being fair, being accountable, what you can do is they can help you find work by finding properties that they know that they could fix if somebody paid them to fix them. So they'll tell you where the problems are in town, relative to, hey, that building's boarded up, it's 55 units. So-and-so had me quote on it, but I didn't think he was going to pay me, so I didn't do it. I know that building's still there. I know who the owner is. If you want, I can put you guys in touch. And if you get the deal, we can work together on the reno. There you go. That's 60 doors you didn't even know were on the market, but all of a sudden now you're front, center ice.
Genius. Thank you for sharing those nuggets. That is some badassery bestowment right there. So I appreciate that very much. My second question, and again, I really want to get into the E.A.S.Y easy system to raise capital, but beyond raising capital, what are some action steps that if I want to purchase, say, 50 units, a 50 unit building, what are some action steps that I get it under contract, I do the letter of intent, I get all that. What are some things that I have to do to get it ready for, hopefully it's not vacant, but anything in addition besides just the raising capital?
Well, the biggest growth hack for anybody who wants to step into multifamily is to get somebody on your team that has been there, done that more than a dozen times or so. Because what'll happen with multifamily is you'll make mistakes on single family that won't cost you much. Mm-hmm. They'll cost you hundreds of dollars, maybe thousands of dollars. Multifamily is a different game. If you make a mistake that would have been $1,000 in residential, that can be $1,000 times 100 units. That could be $100,000 mistake. So the best thing you could do with multifamily, if you've never done anything more than a duplex or a fourplex, is bring in a partner, somebody who's done what you want to do, either as an equity partner, as a strategic partner, as a coach, as a mentor, mentor, get that person on your team, because I'm telling you, there are things, they'll point out one thing to you that will save you 25 or 50 grand. And whatever you were going to pay them or give them in equity or pay them as a fee will have already paid itself back right then and there on that one little, hey, by the way, did you check this? I'll give you an example. We were looking at a property. It was in Tennessee. It was 80 units. It was boarded up. And by the way, we're happy to do higher margin work where we'll actually do a full gut reno. I like to do the medium reno stuff, but we'll do a full tear down to the studs if we have to. And this property in particular, we were about to buy it. And I'm just like, something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. Like I'm missing something. And it bothered me. Finally, I spent an extra $500 to have somebody go and check the sewer lines, because the building had been boarded up for a few years. The sewer line was cracked to the city. Oof. That would have been, I didn't even get a quote on it because I just walked, but that would have probably been a $500,000 touch.
Absolutely. I have heard that actually. So that is huge. I have invested in coaching. I'm a big believer. I'm a coach myself, but I am paying a hefty price because I definitely agree 1,000% how important it is to have a coach, mentor, someone on your side to help you with that. So thank you for bringing that up. All right. What is this E.A.S.Y? Easy system to raise capital for your real estate deals? Talk to me, Marcin. What's this about?
So I started out in, like I said, real estate in the private equity side 15, 16 years ago. And one of the things that I took for granted early days were the systems and processes we had that I just kind of tucked into as a young guy working within a large firm. But when I left and I was on my own and I was back to doing my own deals, I didn't have the confidence to know that the money would be there when I needed it. So I'd have commitments from people, deals would get done, but sometimes I'd have people pull commitments right before we need the cash. You know, if you've raised any amount of money for real estate, you know exactly what that feels like. Yes. It's like that Jerry Maguire fired in the restaurant moment where the whole world stops and you're just like, holy shit, like, like, what do I do with this thing, right? And then you got the lender calling you, escrow, this, that, the other, and you're just, you know, you're in a bind. So the E.A.S.Y system was something that I'd put together to basically let me sleep at night. And E.A.S.Y is exclusive, abundant, scarce, and your allocation. So
say that one more time.
Exclusive, abundant, scarce, and your allocation. So those are the 4 steps to making sure that you have the capital available to you. You're able to create urgency, real urgency, with your investors and qualify them to make sure you've got who you need at the table when you need them there, which is really important. Now, fundraising obviously is a regulated industry, US, Canada. So you need the legal paperwork, you need your accountants, everybody's got to be in line. But assuming you've got all your paper in order, the exclusive, abundant, scarce, and your allocation format will give you a framework to move things forward with your potential investors, which is really important. So again, the E exclusive, what makes your transaction, your deal interesting? So in other words, don't talk to me about going in cap rates or coming out cap rates or what's happening, you know, blue sky, high level. Tell me, hey, this building is selling for $1 million. We tied it up for $1 million. The appraisal came in at 1.3 million. You know, it's on the corner of Main and Main. There's 15,000 cars that drive by per day. The rents are at X. They should be at X plus $300 because of the building down the street. Like, tell me 3 or 4 things that anybody who isn't even in the real estate game could hear that and say, oh, that's interesting. That would presume that there's some value there, right? Like anybody could draw a conclusion from those things and say, oh, okay, those things sound interesting. Okay, so you get your exclusive. A is your abundance. So in other words, don't call a potential investor and leave them with the impression that you need them to bless what you're doing. Don't, so many people, when they reach out to investors, they come at them with this perspective of, hey, so I want to do this. Like, what do you think? Right. And it's like almost the investors they feel like they're in this position of they're there to, you know, bless the transaction because they're going to make it happen. Look, if you can demonstrate that you're doing this regardless and you're just interested in working with them, but in actuality, you have an abundance of people to talk to that want to hear about something like this, it puts you in a position where you're insinuating that, look, I'm doing this regardless. This is happening. I'm going here. There's people that want to come with me. I thought of you. Essentially, are you interested? That, and all that is, presumed without you having to really say it, right? So
that is good. I like this one.
You have to, because otherwise, people get this subservient mentality where they're begging for money. You're not begging for money. You have an opportunity. You have lots of people to talk to. Here's why it's a great deal. And you thought of them because they told you they're interested in these types of things. It's a demeanor, it's a mindset, it's an attitude. And it's not arrogant. It's not meant to be high pressure sales, arrogant, whatever, but you do need to have an undertone of, I'm doing this. Would you like to come?
And that lender needs you because they need you to grow their money for them.
Correct. Whether it's debt or equity or whatever you're raising, 100%.
Yep.
So exclusive, abundant, scarce. In real estate, you have two ways to create scarcity. One is time, because the deal is closing on a certain date, and that is a fixed timeline. It is what it is. Actually, to that end, another mistake people make when they're raising money is they share the deadline for when they're closing the property as the deadline for when they need the money in the bank. Huge mistake.
Right.
Because if you tell an investor you're closing on the property on the 30th, they're going to think, oh, okay, so I'll send you the check on the 29th. Well, that's what I used to do. And what happens if that check doesn't show up? You're now scrambling. So, you create your scarcity from a timeline perspective, but build in that buffer for, WTF. What if something happens, right? So 10, 20 days, whatever you need, build that in. So that's one form of scarcity. The other form of scarcity is the actual capital requirement. Once you get your $500,000, $5 million, $15 million, whatever it is that you need, you're done. So again, exclusive, abundant, scarce. And once you walk them through all those three things, the fourth, the why, is your allocation, or it could be considered your next action item. So in other words, Jen, I know you got to do your diligence on this, and I got to send you the whole package, and you'll probably have some more questions. But look, if all of this checked out the way you think it is, based on what we talked about, what amount would you potentially consider? So you got to ask them. You got to ask the question. Yes, I know you got to look at your due diligence. I got to send you the stuff. I know your lawyer's got to look at it. But if everything checks out, what amount would you consider? And if they come back, and if someone's not interested, they'll just tell you, well, look, I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. I got to consult with my goldfish, or whatever story they want to tell you. If they're not interested, they're very non-committal. And at that point, you can actually say, okay, I'll send it to you, but it doesn't sound like this is of interest to you. And they might say, no, I'm interested. Or they might say, well, I'm buying a cottage, or the kids are going to university, or, I want to keep the money for whatever, and say, okay, no problem. There's no pressure. There's no issues. You can actually just ask them, okay, so do you know anybody else that might be interested? Or, feel free to pass it on to someone else. But someone who is interested will say, well, if it makes sense, I'd probably look at X amount. And you've got, in the industry, we call it a soft commit. You get an indication of whether they're actually interested or they're not. And if they give you an indication of that, you can say, okay, great. So today's Tuesday, I'll send you the information. Why don't we check back in on Friday? Because as I mentioned, I only have X amount of dollars left, or I'm closing this on the 31st. And I just want to get this firmed away as quick as possible. Is Friday okay? Yes. Okay, great. So now you have a follow-up. You send them all the documents, make sure they have all their answers for their accountant, their lawyer, your lawyer, whatever it is, but at least you have a format. And then you get back on the phone with the next person, you do it again.
Marcin, you are so good at this. Oh my goodness. You are just getting me pumped. And you mentioned the word mindset at one point, and I kind of want to dive a little deeper into that, because I have this goal. You can see behind me right here is my vision board. I got a couple multifamily units on there, but my husband is still, who's my business partner, I'm still trying to get him to shift his mindset onto bigger and better projects of the sort. So what's a good way to, and I can't do it for him, obviously, but what's a way to start shifting your mindset to attract these millions of dollars?
Tell him you're doing it anyway and you'd like him to come.
Done. All right. Next question. That was perfect. I love that.
just gauging your demeanor and where your trajectory. I mean, you're gonna make it happen regardless, right? So I think it's important that, most people, first of all, they have a very hard time coming over their own mental blocks. And actually, my favorite book to this end is a book called "The Obstacle Is the Way." It's a book by a guy named Ryan Holiday, and it talks about stoicism. It's rooted in stoicism, and the subtitle of the book is "What is in the way becomes the way." And the book is something that I reread at least once a year because it mentally helps you put things into context and get out of your own way. Because it's as soon as you think to yourself, oh, I want to buy 10 doors or 100 doors and I have to raise, $1 million or 500 grand or whatever it is, you start to get the negative. Oh, well, who's going to invest with me? What if I don't know what I'm doing? There's so many better options out there. What if I look dumb? What if I fail? That you blow yourself up in your own head before you even get a chance to go out there, right? So.
Well, a dear friend of mine, Devin Bravaco, actually made me buy this book, and it's sitting right on my bookshelf over here. So I'm just going to slip that into my husband's desk and be like, oh, that looks like a good book to read. So thank you. That was a very, very good one. All right. Raising money for large deals. When I'm in this single family home, the largest purchase that we've done was $875,000. Mm-hmm. Now I know it's going to be much higher than that. So give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. We were talking about this on the intro when we talk about past projects, but I want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly having to do with raising capital for these larger projects.
Sure. So the good is the economics are the quantum of the sheer volume, the quantum of money involved means that everybody can make a great return, typically faster. And the amount of work required to buy a 10-unit building versus a 100-unit building, I'm not saying it's exactly 1-to-1, but it's not that far off. Right. It really isn't. So that is a really, really good part of it. The other thing too is when you start getting up to larger assets, and you got to be careful because when you go beyond a certain size, you're then swimming with the big boys and with the sharks, and they're operating with a different. Again, they're professionals in a strict sense. So, but getting up to that 150 units, you're able to create tremendous value. And you're able to do it exponentially. So I'll give you an example. Like for every $1 that you add in net income, net operating income in a property, depending on the market, you're adding anywhere from $20 to $25 in profit. Ooh. Right. So, you look at cap rates, 4%, 5%, 6%. I mean, what does that mean in English? It means for every dollar in profit, you add 20 to 25, every dollar in income, you add $20 to $25 in profit. So if you can add one of the properties we were in DD on, it was 100 units. They all had washer dryer hookups, but they didn't have the units. They didn't have the machines there. And I knew I could bump the rent $50 a month per unit per month. So $50 times 100 doors times 12 is $60,000 per year. That $60,000 adds $1.2 or $1.4 million in value to that asset. Think about that for a second. That's insane.
That's insane.
Those washers and dryers will cost me maybe 80 grand across the, 80 washer dryer combos, $800 times 100. You say it's $1,000 times 100. That's 100 grand. Okay. Would you put 100 grand to work to create a $1.2 to $1.5 million bump on your value? Of course you would.
Absolutely.
So the good thing about larger deals is you can do this. If that was a 10-plex, I would spend $10,000 and I would add 100 or 120,000 in value, which is still great as a return, as a percentage, but the quantum isn't there. It's the total, the pie isn't big enough. So that's the good. The bad with larger deals is you got to get, and I don't know if that is the right word, but it's definitely difficult, is you need to get informed and educated on how to raise larger forms of capital. And that means everything from the securities work with your lawyer, because your real estate lawyer isn't the right lawyer. You'll need a securities lawyer that can work with the SEC or whichever regulatory body you're working with, whether it's US or Canada. You need to make sure you're abiding by the rules because, again, as I mentioned, fundraising is a regulated activity. And the other, I guess, bad/difficult part of those larger deals is you're typically dealing with investors that are a lot more shrewd and a lot more sophisticated, and they will ask you questions in a very blunt and pointed way, and you need to speak their language. It's no longer okay to use words interchangeably thinking that they all mean the same thing. Sophisticated investors know the difference between ROI, IRR, COC, cash on cash, return on equity. It's, in my mind, it's never okay to use the same word for everything, but especially when you get up to those more sophisticated investors that are going to write you 6 or 7-figure checks, if they know that you don't know what they're talking about in the context of what they're asking you for, their confidence in you will waver.
Yep.
And that's just a fact. And then the outright ugly or messy or whatever the third category you had is mistakes are never $500 mistakes. Mm-hmm. Mistakes are $50,000 mistakes. Mistakes are $500,000 mistakes. Because again, if you overlook something that is a factor on one of the units because of something structural or roofing, or you overlook the fact that the parking lot needs to be repaved or the lighting is insufficient, chances are that is a common theme throughout the entire property. And again, it's one thing to replace one roof on one unit. It's another thing to have to do it across 100 units, so on and so forth.
This is so good. And Marcin, you just explain it so well. And I see here that while you are taking a break from looking for opportunities, that you are actually teaching and helping other real estate investors raise capital. So do you have a course? Like, I don't even have this in the notes here. How do you teach others?
Sure. Yeah. So we're quite active with M1 Real Capital. I wrote on 2 buildings this week. So we're definitely very active in the market. But when COVID hit, it changed the game for me, like everyone else, because prior to COVID, I used to be on an airplane 50 to 75 times a year, all across North America. And COVID hit, you're locked down. I mean, you couldn't go, it felt like you couldn't go to the bathroom without a permission slip for a minute there. And while this was happening, my wife's like, look, you're driving me crazy. You got to do something with yourself because I'm at home, right? And so I started putting together my thoughts around the things I knew. I decided to host this weekend How to Raise Capital webinar on learning how to use Zoom a couple of years ago. So a whole bunch of people showed up, and I thought at the time that I could just get on a call, answer a bunch of questions, that'd be it. Didn't think anything of it. Well, the 3-hour call turned into a 6-hour call. Wow. And people are like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? I'm like, guys, I gotta go. Like, I'm tired. Like, this is like, so then I said, okay, I'm going to put some thoughts together. And then the thoughts turned into a course. So I created a How to Raise Capital for Real Estate Master Course. And we've had hundreds of people sign up for this thing. And then the course turned into an inner circle where we break the modules down on a weekly basis. And I do a team training. We have anywhere from 50 to 100 students on a weekly basis. They tune in, they participate. We have breakout rooms. And these are people at different stages. Some people own a duplex and they're just trying to figure out how to buy another one. Some people own a couple hundred doors themselves and they're trying to figure out how to get up to 500 doors or more. So, but the skill set of HTRC, How to Raise Capital, is such there's a theme to it. There's a pattern to it. The zeros you require may expand, but the baseline, the foundation, if you will, is always the same. And that's what we do with our course. So.
And how do the listeners find you to become part of this course?
The website's the best place to go take a look. marcindrozdz.com, DROZDZ.com. We typically host 5-day capital challenges for people to sign up, and they get a 5-day crash course in it. They can sign up for the master course. They can apply for the inner circle. The best place to do is just to go to the website and kind of just engage. And depending on someone's requirements, they can figure out where they fit.
Awesome. This is really, really fantastic. And you are just gifted. I'm a former school teacher. And so I just like latch onto people who explain things so clearly and so eloquently. So thank you very, very much. The second part of the podcast is what makes Marcin Drozdz a badass, which you clearly are. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life? And you can't say the obstacle is the way. Pick another one.
I mean, the obstacle is the way is just to be candid, that is my absolute favorite book. Another book that obviously made a huge difference in my life was Rich Dad Poor Dad, because Rich Dad Poor Dad, so many people give those books heck because they're like, they don't tell you how to do things. Well, they're not meant to tell you how to do things. They're meant to show you the context of what to do. Another really good book from Robert's series, for those of you who are trying to scale your business, is the the cash flow quadrant. That's a book that doesn't get its due, but that one walks you through the differences in mindset between employees, self-employed, business owners, and investors. So that would be probably a close second for me.
Have you played his cash flow game?
Oh, many, many, many times.
It's wild to me. I played with a handful, there's 5 of us, investors, and it is so funny how people play, because you have the one investor who buys up everything, and that's how he runs his business. My husband is like Mr. Conservative, and let me pay off things as money comes in. And then he's stuck in the rat race where the rest of us, we kind of hold on to our debt a little bit, and then it projects us into the next area. So I love it. I love me some Robert Kiyosaki. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best advice I think I ever got, if I had to distill it, is you're never as dumb as you feel, and you're never as smart as you think.
I love that.
And I mean that in the context of, look, when things are going really well, it's easy to think that it's because of you. And to an extent, fair enough. You've done things well, you've done things right, and you're being rewarded for it. But don't discredit, where the market has gone. Take right now, the market is on fire just about everywhere. And a lot of people confuse the market with their personal ability to do things. And those are the same people that are going to be sorely disappointed when the market does, not if, but when the market eventually does turn, whether it goes full-blown recession, just goes to a soft landing. If you base your self-worth based on what's happening externally, eventually you will be disappointed.
Well said. And by the way, Ryan Holiday has another book called Ego is the Enemy. Have you read that one?
I have that one on my list.
It's sitting next to the other book. So I got to dive into those. All right. D, we have drive. What drives Marcin to be successful?
Well, I guess most recently my wife and I had a daughter about 5 months ago, and
Aww.
There's something, all my friends, when they had kids, they're like, yeah, when you have a kid, you'll get it. And I was always like, yeah. Well, you know what? That first time she grabbed my, pinky with her entire hand, it melted me. So at this point, I think it's just family, it's legacy, it's being, doing things that when my daughter's old enough to know what I've done, that she'd be proud of me for it. So
that is fantastic and lovely. So thank you for sharing that. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
So goal that I'm currently working on is we've retooled ourselves at M1 to be able to consistently add 1,000 doors a year. So I believe we can get up to that here in the next 12 months or so. So it's one thing to buy a bunch of buildings once and go away. It's another thing to be able to consistently scale and grow, and everything from financing, capital, operations, team management, converting what we've done from just being a boutique business into more of a full-scale PE firm is my next major aspiration.
And my goal is to get 101 doors. So you are inspiring me. By the end of this year, I want 101 doors. I'm 8 in so far, so
Okay.
I can do it. All right. The first S in badass is systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Systems are the backbone of everything I think that we do. I admittedly am typically someone who's slower to start things because I'm immediately thinking through, okay, so how do I replicate this? How do I not become the cog in the machine? How do I not become the pressure point in the business, right? So one of the things that I think would help most of your listeners is to get in the habit of having some kind of a project management software in place. There's free versions of it out there. My favorite is something called Basecamp. And I think it's about 80 or $100 a month or whatever it is. And Basecamp is something that I'm able to integrate one-off projects, recurring projects. And, we have dozens of people that are doing fulfillment on projects, properties, courses, materials, various different things. So getting everybody plugged into Basecamp gives me a central way to look at things. And then one more piece of advice is use your email as a filing cabinet. So my inbox is always empty, as an example. Like if I ever pick up my phone and look at my inbox, I either action something or I file it into need to do right away. And I've got a few specific folders, but that inbox for me is always empty.
That is very good. It freaks me out when people have 101 unread messages. I'm like, what?
Instant anxiety. My wife, her brain operates very differently and she is fantastically organized, but I look at her inbox, Gmail, and the number 99999. I'm just like, oh my God. I immediately just get sweaty. Like I can't do that.
That is so funny. All right. The final S in badass is success. What does success mean to Marcin Drozdz?
Success to me has always meant to be able to do what I want, when I want, for as long as I want, with whoever I want, whenever I want. That to me has always been my success, to do the things I want to do, when I want to do them, where, with who, for however long. And it was never a monetary thing. It was never a dollar thing. It was never, oh, I'm going to buy this car, I'm going to buy this house, or it was always just freedom, to be free from the need. Because I go back to that internship that I did in my school years downtown, and just taking the bus, the trains, the commute, the shit weather, and just dealing with all that stuff. I was like, I am never going to live my life like this. So for me, absolute pure freedom is success for me.
Well, it has been such a pleasure interviewing you. I'd love to have you back on the show once I get my 101 doors and talk through it. And then I want to scale it the following year. You have been such an inspiration to me. I really, truly appreciate it. And I want to spell your website one more time. It's Marcin, Marcin. And I'm respelling your last name because I misspelled it one time. So DROZDZ.com. I left out that first Z. So MarcinDrozdz.com. You all check him out. Thank you, Marcin. It has been a pleasure. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.